Chapter 5 Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. The ash cloud cleared, and I stared in horror at the puddle of gunk in which I had fallen, thick and putrid. It smelled like the cow farms that we'd passed when we drove through Vermont. It coated my hands like chocolate frosting. Eggshells and potato peelings floated on the surface. I leaped to my feet, shuddering to imagine what other ingredients I might find. Mud splotches covered the front of my costume. The hem had soaked up the stinky sludge as well. Talk about bad karma. But I guess that's what happens when you tell your mother that you hate her. Despite my tumble into garbage, my panic attack subsided. I took a long, deep breath, relieved to see that neither my mother or Troy had followed me into the alley. I wiped my hands on the front of my dress. No way was I going back inside to wash them. I'd stop at a nearest Starbucks, a half block in any direction, and use their bathroom. One of the nice things about New York City is that everyone has seen everything, so I knew I wouldn't have to deal with people staring or pointing fingers. Mud-stained Renaissance clothing is mild compared to what some of the street performers wear. As soon as I got home, I'd change clothes, pack my bags, call Aunt Mary, and beg her to book me a new flight. Shaking some mud from my hem, I started up the alley, but I didn't make it more than a few steps because I twisted my ankle on the cobblestone. In the 14 years that I've been entering and exiting the Wallingford Theater, there had never been cobblestones in the alley. And what was all that light beckoning from the alley's entrance? One of those spotlights, I guessed, that advertised a grand opening. "Capulet scum!" a voice cried. A woman leaned out an upper-story window in the building across the alley. At that time, a classical dance troupe rented the upstairs studio. "Damn you Capulets to hell!" The woman shook her fist at me, then tossed out some slop from a bucket, creating another puddle of gunk that missed me by mere inches. "Enough already. I just wanted to get home." "That's disgusting," I told her. "What's your problem?" She shook her fist again, then retreated. In my experience, dancers are notoriously temperamental, especially those of the classical persuasion. She had probably auditioned for Romeo and Juliet and was holding a grudge against me. Had she dreamed of Juliet's role for as long as I had dreamed of people calling me doctor? I stepped over the new puddle. Dancers are notorious binge eaters as well. Maybe that's what the slop was all about, but I wasn't interested in pondering eating disorders. My ankle was a bit sore as I hobbled up the alley towards the blinding light. Certainly the symbolism of that moment was not lost on me. The dead move toward the light, seeking God and everlasting peace. A panic attack can leave its victim feeling like the living dead. But moths move towards the light as well, only to get fried. Zap! What fate awaited me? At the end of the alley I squinted, shielding my eyes as they adjusted. The spotlight perched high overhead and penetrated my costume with its heat. As my pupils constricted, I found out it was not a spotlight at all. It was the sun. And that is the moment I will never forget. I warned you in the beginning that you might not believe the story I was about to tell, so you've probably anticipated this moment. You may have also read the book's jacket copy, so you know at some point I'm going to take an unexpected trip. I did not have the luxury of a book jacket, however, to prepare me, so I felt totally bewildered. The sky, not aglow with city lights or heavy with snow clouds, sparkled baby blue like the bottom of a painted swimming pool. Cotton ball clouds floated, cast here and there by a light breeze, and the air was thick with humidity. What had, an hour earlier, been a familiar city street was transformed. Before me lay a market square. A stone tower stood across the way, and a cluster of stalls overflowed with flowers and produce. A central fountain shaped like a cake stand with a sculpted lady on top spouted water. Chickens scurried about, pigeons flew past, and 2 piglets slept in a basket. A crowd had gathered at the far end. It looked like a Renaissance fair, the way everyone was dressed. For a moment I thought that a film crew had set up shop, except even Steven Spielberg couldn't move whole buildings, and 2 city blocks worth had simply disappeared. My instinct was to get somewhere that made sense, so I turned back. Fickle, you might be saying to yourself, but at the moment I would have welcomed the Wallingford Theater, would have kissed its dingy carpet if it meant I hadn't lost my mind. The dancer had returned to the alley window, so I decided to try the main entrance. But I couldn't find the building I knew so well. No marquee with twinkling yellow lights, no glass lobby doors, no ticket booth, no pimply-faced guy. A wooden sign with a painting of a high-heeled boot hung above a simple wooden door. I flung the door open, hoping with all my heart to find the coat-check crones gossiping and smoking. Instead, I stepped into a cobbler's shop, poorly lit with a few candles. "We're not open yet," a man muttered. He hammered on a piece of leather. Hold on, Rodney. Another man stepped forward, wringing his hands. We'd consider opening early for a lady, if she's got the means to pay. He looked at my soiled dress and pursed his lips. Perhaps you're looking for the dress shop. 2 doors down. I backed up, stumbling into the square. A group of children ran past. More people made their way towards the growing crowd. I suddenly felt numb. I now know it was shock. Shock serves a purpose by turning off your brain for a moment so it doesn't self-destruct. Shock creates a barrier so you can gradually let the experience in, like slowly wading into frigid water. "Mimi!" a man called. I spun around but didn't see any familiar faces. Was I hearing things? No, there it was again. "Mimi!" "I'm over here," I replied, waving my hands in the air. Which direction did the voice come from? "The prince is speaking," people told each other as they hurried by. Men dressed in tights and short pants climbed the fountain, stretching their necks for a better view. Women in long dresses pushed into the square. I kept spinning, searching desperately for my collar. The sea of bodies forced me towards the center of the square. "I'm over here," I called again. "Quiet! You must listen to the prince," a man scolded. The crowd stilled and a voice burst forth from somewhere ahead. I couldn't see the speaker, but he spoke familiar words. "Rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, listen to the sentence of your prince." I found myself squished between an enormously fat woman and a guy who smelled like onions. I could just make out a hat with a red feather that bobbed as the prince spoke. "3 times now the Capulets and the Montagues have fought in our streets, spilling their own blood as well as the blood of innocent bystanders. I will stand for no more. If either house disrupts the peace again, the punishment shall be death. That is the word of your prince." The Capulets and the Montagues? Okay, this was getting stranger by the minute. The crowd began to murmur, many nodding their heads in agreement. The fat woman glared at me. "Did you hear that, Capulet?" She was missing a few teeth. "Tell your menfolk that they'll hang by their necks if they keep fighting." Another woman purposefully bumped into me as she walked by, spitting at my feet. "Capulet scum," she hissed. I didn't know if I should burst into tears or start giggling hysterically, so I did both. I stood there like a crazy person in my mud-splattered dress. This was just like the opening of the play, when the prince makes his proclamation. Just like the play that I was trying to escape. How could this be happening? "Move on," a group of men ordered as they swept across the square. They wore matching red capes and red felt hats. "Move on, orders of the prince." The crowd obeyed, and the spitting woman moved away as well. "Back to your business, everyone. You there." Turns out I was the you there. One of the men strode towards me, a unibrow dripping over his dark eyes. "I don't recognize you." What was I supposed to say? I had nothing to say. I couldn't have been more confused if I had landed on Mars. Then I remembered the ashes that I had inhaled. What if they hadn't been fireplace ashes after all, but had been magic mushroom ashes, or some kind of other ashes that brings on hallucinations? Okay, that was possible. That sounded good. I had never done drugs before, and I hadn't intended on doing drugs, but it was possible I was in the middle of some sort of acid trip. The man grabbed my arm and squeezed real hard. "You're wearing Capulet's colors. It's against the law to pose as a noble. You want that pretty little neck of yours hanging from a noose?" My mind spun as I stared into his angry eyes. How could a hallucination hurt? And why was he yelling at me, spattering my face with spittle? Another panic attack ignited in the soles of my feet, ready to shoot up through my core. I will not lose control. I can deal with this. I can deal with the fact that I have no idea what's going on. He tightened his grip like a deadly blood pressure cuff. "I got a right mind to take you to jail, unless you want to give me a little something in return." He grabbed me around the waist and pulled me against his hip. The hilt of his sword dug into my ribs. "Please stop, you're hurting me," I whimpered. "There is no need for violence," a kindly voice said. An old man in a brown robe stepped forward. A large silver cross hung around his neck. "We should give this woman a chance to explain." He placed a speckled hand on the soldier's arm, melting the tension. I pulled away. Then the speckled hand patted my shoulder. "You are frightened, my child. Take a moment to catch your breath." Frightened? More like scared out of my mind. A crowd of onlookers gathered around. "Well?" the soldier asked impatiently. "Who are you?" He leaned close, enveloping me with his halitosis. "Lavender and gold are Capulet's colors. And like I said, it's against the law to pose as a noble. I'll have to arrest you if you're not a Capulet." I couldn't find my voice. The old man patted my shoulder again. "Have you come for the party?" he asked. His hair was cut in a strange ring encircling his head. "Capulet cousins have been arriving all week long for tonight's party. Is that why we do not recognize you?" Perhaps you have traveled far. Is that why your dress is soiled?" "Yes," I managed. Dear God, what was I saying? But for the first time in my life, telling someone that my name was Mimi Wallingford, great-granddaughter of Adelaide Wallingford, was not going to help me. I just wanted that soldier to go away. "I'm a Capulet cousin." "Ah, there, see? We have an answer." The old man clapped his hands together. The soldier adjusted his red hat. "Then you'd better get to Capulet House. There's no telling what might happen to you on the streets." It was a blatant threat, and his sinister expression terrified me. The old man watched the soldier saunter away. "Holy Saint Francis," he mumbled, "everyone is so hot-tempered these days." He picked up the hem of his long robe and smiled. "I must be off, as should you. Heed the soldier's advice and get to Capulet House right away. And if you need spiritual guidance of any sort during your visit, you can find me at the Church of St. Francis, the most beautiful church in Verona." Verona? "Just ask for Friar Lawrence." He hurried off, his sandals kicking up bits of dirt. Friar Lawrence was a character from Romeo and Juliet. The onlookers continued to glare at me. I wanted to hide, to curl up into a little ball someplace dark. So I ran back into the alley from which I had come. Back up the rabbit hole, please, oh please, back to reality. But I found no stage door. Stumbling, I followed the alley, winding here and there and down a little hill until it widened into a lane. I passed under a series of archways, then rounded a sharp corner where the lane came to an abrupt end. I reached up to swat a fly from my face, and I found myself gazing at the horizon, dotted with tall trees and rolling hills. Not a single skyscraper or yellow taxi or pedestrian anywhere to be seen. Directly in front of me stood a crumbling stone wall. Rows of fruit trees lay to my left. Goats grazed in a field to my right. The shock wore off. I plunged into the icy waters of reality. New York City was gone.